Francisco Parés Alicea. He is the Secretary of Treasury, known as the Hacienda in Puerto Rico. So many of you have questions for him that I have not been able to answer. So the Secretary is kind enough to join us. And, sir, I think the main question for everyone is, when are the stimulus checks going to be sent to folks on the island?
Perfect, David. First, thank you for the opportunity. So we can be able to reach as many people as possible. So thank you for that. In terms for the timing, the CARES Act established that the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury must approve a distribution plan, so the territories like Puerto Rico are able to actually use the distribution plan and in order to distribute the corresponding monies and benefits to the people within the territories. Having said that, we submitted the distribution plan for the IRS and the U.S. Treasury review the past April 8th. They have been both entities reviewing the same with respect to the review process. The IRS first, their approach that they want to focus at the beginning was their review first and then the corresponding review by the U.S. Treasury. But looks like last week they changed a little bit their approach. They are doing a concurrent review between the IRS and the U.S. Treasury, probably to accelerate the approval process. Having said that, from an operational standpoint, the Hacienda, it's already listo in Spanish, ready to actually distribute the monies for some of the people that have filed a Puerto Rican income tax return. We have identified close to 500,000 taxpayers who will generate benefits close to $800 million approximately. So certainly we are ready. We issued electronic confirmation to the people that we have identified based on our draft of the distribution plan. And quite frankly, I am not sure on when the IRS is going to be approving the plan. They will be providing us during this evening some update with respect to the concurrent review that they are doing with the U.S. Treasury. But at least yesterday, we were able to have some access to some of the database within the IRS that is needed in order to process returns and reduce the risk for double benefit, which is a big step. We thought that step was only going to be able to perform after the approval of the plan, but the IRS allow us to do that within the process of the plan's approval. So I'm very eager, obviously, for the approval process, as the same with Governor Vasquez. And we are doing our best effort to respond on a timely fashion all the questions that the IRS has been providing the Puerto Rico Treasury Department. So we are doing our best. We are ready from an operational standpoint. We have a very robust infrastructure from the information system standpoint. We have been making some investment, some capital investment in our information system infrastructure. And we feel very confident that we can actually start very soon after the plan's approval and that the money goes to Puerto Rico so we can distribute those money to the people within the island.
Okay, so many questions to ask you to unpack that. Number one, will you be able to direct deposit the funds?
Yes, the process, what it does is it takes a look to the 2019 income tax return file. And if that tax return has the bank information, we will deposit the corresponding money direct to the bank account reported on the 2019 income tax return file. If the person didn't file a 2019 income tax return, we will see if that person already filed a 2018 tax return similar to the IRS. However, the 2018 tax returns were filed in a very old system, and we don't feel very confident about the bank information used therein. So what we are going to do is that for people that doesn't have a 2019 return, including the bank account information, or file a 2018 tax return, we are going to deploy a link within our SURI system, a link so they can report their bank information, very similar to the EIP program that issued the IRS for their residents within the island. So in Puerto Rico, we will use the same approach. So people can actually go through that link through SURI, which is our information system for tax administration, and they can actually input the bank account information so we can do the direct deposit of the corresponding benefits.
Okay. All right. So you have to have filed a tax return in order to get this money.
For the taxpayers. However, similar to the IRS on how the IRS is actually performing the distributions, we have a capability for non-filers that will be issued probably some weeks after commencing the program. If the program is commenced during this week or next week, we will also allow non-filers to actually file like an informative form in an electronic fashion through a SURI system, so they can do their representations with respect to the income thresholds that are applicable to any U.S. citizen, including the ones in the mainland, very similar rules. And they also will be declaring the information with respect to their dependents. So we can actually calculate the total economic impact payment, and we can also perform the direct deposits to those people who are not bound to file an income tax return. The first phase that we are ready is for taxpayers. Later on, and I don't think it's going to be a huge gap, we will be able to actually go live with the non-filer element in SURI.
And were there only 500,000 taxpayers for the last tax year?
Yes, but our estimation is that we have closely to 800,000, 860,000 taxpayers in a normal, an ordinary year. So based on that estimation, we believe that we will identify close to 300,000 taxpayers using the additional taxpayer using the 2018 information, similar to the approach used in the mainland.
But there are 3.2 to 3.4 million people on the island. So what happened? What happened to the rest of them?
Many of them are participants from the food stamp program, which many of them are not bound to file an income tax return. Also, you have a tax. You might have tax returns who are filed jointly between spouses. So it counts as one return, but there are two individuals covered on those income tax returns. So the numbers of forecast participants can go as high as 2.7, 2.8 million participants. Some of them will be covered through the income tax return filing process, and some of them will be covered through the non-filer approach, which is going to be very similar to the approach used by the IRS with respect to the EIPs.
So the vast majority of people are on food stamps, and that's how they collect their benefits. Is that what I'm understanding?
You have food stamp and also participants for the Social Security program and retired person who doesn't reach to the minimum threshold to be bound to file a tax return. Okay. So that's very similar to the mainland as well.
Okay. Are states on the mainland having to go through this same process that Puerto Rico is having to go through?
The states, with respect to the distribution, the state's government are not facing the same challenges because the federal government is distributing this directly to their taxpayers. We don't have that benefit here in Puerto Rico because the act established that for territories which their residents are not bound to file a federal tax return are obligated to go through the distribution plan process. So it's a little bit different. However, in terms of customer service, the difference is that the mainland residents will be directly involved with the IRS, and for the Puerto Rican residents, if they didn't file a federal tax return, a normal 1040 form, they must get their payments directly from the Puerto Rico Treasury Department, Hacienda, better known.
Do Puerto Ricans pay federal income tax?
We pay Social Security and Medicaid, the FICA taxes, as they are known in the mainland. Puerto Rican, bona fide residents of Puerto Rico are not bound to pay federal income taxes with respect to the income generated within Puerto Rico. So salaries, which are the vast majority of the income generated by individuals, are from sources within the island. Therefore, those taxpayers are not bound to actually pay federal income taxes, because their income is excluded through Section 933 of the Federal Tax Code.
So, Mr. Secretary, if Puerto Ricans pay Social Security, then why wouldn't the federal government be able to direct tap into those folks?
There are a couple of challenges from an operational standpoint within the IRS, specifically of the definition of adjusted gross income, which is the figure used in the mainland. Obviously, there are some challenges with the self-employed professionals, which are bound to file certain returns, which most of them file for their Social Security benefits. However, even though the IRS might pay them directly, the matter of fact is that the law obligates the U.S. Treasury and the Puerto Rico Treasury Department to deal with a distribution plan. It's not something that we actually searched for, but it was the Congress decision in their legislative office. So certainly it's an obligation by act. There are some operational challenges in both sides. So obviously there is no perfect policy decision here. Both of the approach have their pros and cons. So however, the law says one thing, and the IRS, the U.S. Treasury, and the Puerto Rican government are trying, at least from our standpoint, our best effort to attain the approval of the plan.
How long have you been trying to obtain approval of the plan?
We have been commencing we commenced conversations with the IRS with respect to the EIP program since March 23rd, which I think it was before the enactment of the CARES Act. I need to double check, but I remember one meeting or phone conference with the IRS folks prior the enactment of the CARES Act, taking their feedback on how they were looking to implement this within Puerto Rico. And
so
after the enactment on April 8th, we actually submit for their review the draft of the distribution plan. So we have been, and we talk to them on a daily basis, David. I've been consistent with the follow-up. Our team is very involved. We respond to all of their questions and concerns, and we haven't seen yet a plans draft with their feedback. So we have been dealing with the questions and solving some of the question or concern that has been arised by the IRS, but the Hacienda didn't have the benefit or doesn't have the benefit yet to take a look to the plan with their complete feedback. I think they are working that as we speak.
What is the main question they have for you that has not been ironed out?
I think it's how the federal government is going to distribute the monies to the Social Security participants and the veterans. I think that's one of the most critical things that we have been dealing and sharing our impressions to the IRS. It's Hacienda and the government of Puerto Rico and Governor Vasquez preference that the federal government distribute the monies directly to those Social Security participants and veterans who doesn't file a Puerto Rican tax return, because as I pointed out to you previously, some of them are not bound to file a Puerto Rican income tax return. So, and most of them are the elderly people. So taking that into consideration, obligating them to file a simple informative form through electronic means reduce the likelihood of the outreach of this program. That's why we have been consistent in our position that, similar to the mainland, our participants from the Social Security benefits, it will be preferable to receive those funds directly from the federal government.
Who are you dealing with at the IRS right now in the Treasury on this issue?
We have been reaching Assistant Secretary from a U.S. standpoint. Also, the U.S. Territory Program Manager from the IRS, which has been the point of contact not only for this, for other programs similar in nature. We acknowledge since the beginning, similar to the results provided in the 2009 with some similar distribution programs. The Puerto Rico Treasury Department acknowledged that this was going to be a very significant and challenging process. However, different from back then, I think we have been very diligent, telling you that we are ready to distribute $800 million to 500,000 participants. It's not a small number. That has been a work very well performed by our officers within Hacienda. I feel very confident of our infrastructure. It was very useful for the self-employed professionals who receive the $500 benefit prior the federal government sending direct benefits to their residents within the mainland. So I feel very confident with respect to our capabilities. Our capabilities today are far beyond the capabilities that Hacienda had prior our involvement in Hacienda in 2017.
Do you believe the Treasury and the IRS is treating Puerto Rico as a priority?
Yeah, my conversation with them, I see that they feel the pressure that they must approve this plan. They have been very diligent with all of our communications. Every email that I sent to them has been responded in a very timely fashion. However, the law treats us differently. We are a territory, we are not a state. There's a significant difference in the approach with respect to U.S. residents of the mainland with respect to the U.S. citizens living in Puerto Rico. And that's something that it was a legislative action. It was not something that we were looking for, but we need to deal with the act as it was enacted. So certainly they were not diligent. Looks like they have some operational concerns. So let's see. We are doing our best effort to get the approval of the plan. Governor has been very diligent on that aspect as well. We have notified resident commissioner, the Fiscal Oversight Management Board, to join efforts so we can keep pushing this through the corresponding channels to get the approval. I'm ready. The Puerto Rico Treasury Department and the government of Puerto Rico is ready to commence for a significant portion of our Puerto Ricans.
All right, and this is what everybody talks about when they talk about Puerto Rico being treated like a second-class citizen. This is exactly what they're talking about, right? The states have different rules. The territories don't get it. States get, So anyway, everybody has the context. Mr. Secretary, I want to move on to some questions now because a lot of them are coming in. So Karen asked, and I believe we've already addressed this, but how do non-filers get their stimulus check? We've talked about that, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
when can the non-filers get access to the link to help them receive the money?
It will depend through the timeline of the distribution plan. However, if the plan is approved today, I think in a couple of weeks, we will be able to also go live with the non-filer segment of the process.
Have you met face-to-face or spoken with the Treasury Secretary, the U.S. Treasury Secretary?
For this topic, no, I haven't had the opportunity to talk with him directly. We sent a letter to the U.S. Secretary, Honorable Secretary Mnuchin, and he responded. His office sent the letter to the IRS, and looks like that actually activated the reconsideration process of the IRS with respect to the Social Security participants.
Ask him if he's willing to make public the IRS responses or comments. He claims the IRS is the reason for the delays. I don't trust him.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yes, sir. Someone says, ask him if he's willing to make public the responses or comments given by the IRS. He claims the IRS is the reason for the delay on the payments. I don't trust him.
Obviously, I need to double check with the IRS if I'm allowed to actually present to the public all the conversations embedded therein. I don't want to blame the IRS. We have a long-standing relationship with that instrumentality, and we have a very positive relationship. And I consider that they have been diligent with the approval process. I'm not quite sure what is the thing that are precluding them to approve the distribution plan. None of the questions, only the Social Security and veterans approach, it's something big. All of the questions has been responded. This is a program, a multi-billion-dollar program, which must be distributed to millions of Puerto Ricans. So I can understand a review process, certainly. And I didn't expect to issue a plan without any feedback from the IRS. It's very technical, very operational, and they are doing their best effort. Nothing as of today makes me to consider that they are not doing a good job or are not very diligent with the approval process. They will know why they haven't approved this, or what is precluding them to approve the distribution plan. But I know that they are doing their job.
It's taken too long, Mr. Secretary. That's my opinion. Rosita says, people who receive Social Security, do they need to complete some forms and papers in order to receive the $1,200?
That's the big ticket item, at least from my standpoint. Social Security participants who file a tax return, our proposed plan established that they will receive that money from Hacienda's program. But Social Security participants who didn't file a tax return, our proposal presents that it's the U.S. Treasury that will be issuing the payments directly to their bank accounts, similar to the experience faced by mainland residents in the United States.
Has the federal government approved the guidelines to disperse the money? The answer is no.
Nope.
Why are they prioritizing individuals who have filed their 2019 taxes? Is it because that's just the most recent information?
That's a very good question. It's only an operational challenge within Puerto Rico. And we know from firsthand that the IRS is also establishing certain operational phases, considering their operational capabilities and challenges. The 2018 information was filed in an old information system. Not all of the information therein was actually migrated to SURI, which is the new system. Some of that information is critical to calculate the incentive. That's why we were performing a bridge of information, so we can actually access that information from the old system. Our team is doing testing on that information from the 2018, so we can go ahead and actually provide the capability for 2018 taxpayers which didn't file a 2019 return to get this money in similar fashion as the U.S. mainland are receiving this money.
Will those without a bank account receive checks via mail?
That's something that it is considering the plan. There's a phase after the direct deposits for the government of Puerto Rico to issue payments through checks. So similar to the mainland, there is going to be a phase as well for payment checks. But my recommendation is that if you have a bank account, report us that bank account through the filing of the 2019 tax return or using our link for actually inform us the bank account so you can have your payment in a most accelerated fashion.
When do you think this is going to happen? I mean, surely you've got to be asking that question.
I'm asking that question on a daily basis.
And what's the answer today?
They are doing their best effort. Previously, when the IRS was not doing the concurrent review, they were expecting to issue their approval to the U.S. Treasury by the end of April. They, since the beginning, knew that from an operational standpoint, we were going to be ready on April 27. That was my commitment. That was my representation. And that was a fact performed by the Hacienda. Having said that, they changed their approach during last week to perform a concurrent review with the U.S. Treasury. I don't know how much more time it's going to be taking this concurrent review. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if after that concurrent review, it's going to be subject to another review within the U.S. Treasury. I am asking the IRS folks. They will be providing me more information during this evening. But certainly and unfortunately, I don't have that information. Obviously, it is not within my powers and faculties establish their work plan to the IRS and the U.S. Treasury.
What about the $500 that the governor says was going to be given to people? Did that go out?
For self-employed professionals, we commenced the distribution prior. Federal government actually sent direct incentive to the residents in Puerto Rico, and that's something that we are very proud of. In 7 days or 8 days, we start issuing the payments after the approval process by Governor Vasquez. So that's something that we are very proud of. However, we are only 71% in terms of the issuance of the forecasted funds. Having said that, there is a 29% of people who didn't, or as of today, have not submitted their request. So my invitation to them is to go to Suri and complete the process. It's very simple. And we pay close to 48 hours after the issuance of that self-declaration where they report their bank account information.
Filing of the 2019 returns was postponed until June or July. So why is he taking into account those who filed the 2019 return?
Because we are also considering the 2018 return as well. So people who didn't file the 2019 tax return, they need to be, or they must feel confident that we will get their information through the 2018 tax return. It's only an operational challenge as a result of the events that we transitioned to Suri for this tax season. It's only that. But we are doing our best effort. We already have had access to the 2018 information and we are testing it. So we are very close to have full access through Suri for the 2018 information so we can actually provide those services in a similar fashion as the mainland is doing.
Is there a way, and this may seem like a ridiculous question, but is there not a way, sir, for you to just go about finding every individual on the island and creating a database and just doing it differently?
Differently from the mainland, we have some constraints with respect to the information that we have access, addresses, social security numbers of people who doesn't file a tax return within the mainland. We try our best effort to join efforts with the Department of Family and use their food stamps infrastructure to issue those money directly. Looks like from a regulatory fashion, we are unable to do that. So we need to consider those food stamp participants to as non-filers, as long as they haven't filed an income tax return. And they will have a platform, very easy platform, similar to the IRS approach. So obviously, we were of the opinion that using the Department of Family Infrastructure was the right approach. Unfortunately, the regulatory constraints didn't allow us to go through that route. But if you ask me, that was a very good approach. However, federal regulations didn't allow us to go through that.
It's April 29th. What's the likelihood that by June 1st, it still will not have been distributed?
Oh, for me, that's unacceptable. Very unacceptable.
But Mr. Secretary, with all due respect, it's unacceptable now.
It's unacceptable, yeah. Of course. But taking into consideration that CARES Act treats us differently, and the IRS is actually facing some challenges as well from the operational standpoint. I cannot say that they are not very diligent on that aspect. Also, there are U.S. citizens living in the mainland who hasn't received the funds yet. That's occurring right now. So, but my expectation is
the difference with the mainland folks is that they're not having to come up with this distribution plan that you basically have to get approved first in order to get it. The mainland folks are just waiting to get it. You're still waiting to get approval on exactly how you're going to do it to then get the money to then put it out.
Nevertheless, we have been doing some diligent efforts within Hacienda, obviously taking some risk because if they change our distribution plan on significant aspects, we might change significantly the design main within Suri. I don't think that is going to occur, but it was the right managerial decision for us being ready as diligent as possible when the plan is approved. So we have been doing some efforts to accelerate that based on previous experiences with the EITC program back in 2018, with the ARRA funds back in 2009. We acknowledged that we were on a inconvenient position, but considering or comparing with other U.S. residents living in the mainland. However, we were cutting or reducing those things that might put us in a inconvenient position. We have been doing a great job. However, the June 1st, I know that for governor and for myself, it's very unacceptable. There is no reason why we cannot have a proof plan so we can start issuing the funds on a very fast fashion.
The plan you created, was it done in consultation with the federal government in the creation, or did you create it on your own and then just bring it to them?
We use some of the things that were used back in 2009 with the ARRA funds. Having said that,
what's that a fund?
Were some funds for the that were issued in 2009 by the federal government to help Puerto Rico and the U.S. citizens in the mainland with the fiscal challenges that were faced back in 2009. And that's the most similar distribution program issued by the IRS, U.S. Treasury, and Hacienda to direct benefits to the individual. So we use some of the things that were included in that plan. Also, as I pointed out, we had some conversations with our IRS folks prior to the enactment of the CARES Act and just after the enactment of the CARES Act. So we had some feedback. Also, we use the act to see the technical aspects. So we include those in the plan. And our plan is very similar to the distribution or to the experience that the mainland residents will be having with this plan, with the CARES Act distribution, with the EIPs.
If your plan was approved tonight, could you begin distribution tomorrow?
It's very likely, let's say, give me 72 hours. So if I have the approved plan and I have the funds, obviously, what we did is also anticipating any risk that we had an approved plan, but we don't have the funds already distributed. I asked the Fiscal Oversight Board to approve that I can anticipate at least $400 million using the Puerto Rico Secretary operational bank account. So I can anticipate those funds and advance them to the participants until we wait for the distributions of the federal monies, and we can reimburse that to the local government. So from an operational standpoint, we already had access for some of the information that we need to validate prior the distribution of the plan. If no significant changes are performed to our plan as we actually present to them, I think that in a couple of days, people can start seeing the monies deposit directly into their bank accounts.
As of right now, is the $1,200 that comes from the CARES Act in your bank account? Do you even have it yet?
The $1,200 program, no. We don't have that.
You don't even have it in the account yet.
No.
Okay.
And thank you, because I can clarify that urban legend that the Puerto Rican government is using those funds to generate interest income. That's completely false. That's a urban legend based, I don't know in what, because the CARES Act clarifies that. It says that the Secretary of the U.S. Treasury is authorized to distribute the monies to the governmental territories when a plan is approved. And we don't have an approved plan. So I don't have an approved plan and I don't have the monies. I have a commitment from the Fiscal Oversight Board that if I have a executed plan and authorized by the U.S. government, I can go to my bank account and use those monies to accelerate the payments to the Puerto Rican residents based on those distribution rules.
If the money were to be given to you tonight, if you were to be able to begin distribution in 72 hours, how many people as of now would you actually be able to distribute to?
200 and almost 300,000 taxpayers who reported their bank account information. They will be immediately benefit from this because we have all the information. And also, we will be able to get the information from the other taxpayer who filed a 2019 return, which is close to 200,000 taxpayers who didn't report their bank account. And we are going to be able to get that information, and in a time frame of 48 hours, 72 hours estimated, we might have some variances. We will be able to deposit those amounts once they reported their bank account. That's how robust we feel and how confident we feel in the new Hacienda's capabilities based on all the work performed since I joined the Internal Revenue area back in 2017.
300,000, though, is like such a small amount for the people living on the island.
It's close, almost a fifth of the total population directly. So in terms of the 500 people, 500,000 taxpayers who have filed the 2019 return, 300,000 of them file informing their bank account information. 200,000, we need to get their bank account information so we can deposit that directly. But it's a big chunk, probably very proportional to the first days of the program when commencing the mainland.
What didn't I ask that you'd like to add?
I think that if you can help us also to create some conscience with respect to the status of this, I will greatly appreciate that. We were doing our best effort. I've been very active in the social media because I understand how important this is for the Puerto Rican families. For me, this is the biggest priority. I know that people are taking into consideration the forecast of this money for their personal living. I do understand that, and I don't take that lightly. Our team don't take that lightly. This can be the difference between having 3 meals in a day or not having 3 meals in a day. And quite frankly, that's my biggest concern here. We need to help our people.
Close to half the people who live on the island of Puerto Rico live below the poverty line. So this $1,200 is essential. Listen, I will definitely elevate this, and I will ring that bell. Absolutely. What would you say? Puerto Rico doesn't have a voting member of Congress. The resident commissioner has to partner with allies in the Congress in order to, sponsor legislation to actually get things passed. What would you say to the government? I mean, like this is your chance. I will air this clip so they hear it, and I will. So what do you want them to do to get this done faster? Because this is another example of Puerto Rico being treated like a second-class citizen.
That we are as well U.S. citizens, that I do acknowledge that there were some operational challenges within the federal government that need to be addressed prior to the approval of the distribution plan. I'm very conscious of that. But however, we are in need as well. We started the lockdown in order to conserve or to protect our health system. And these $1,200 are critical to maintain our health system, because people will have this money so they can still perform the social distancing aspects or activities. So this is critical. It's as critical for the mainland and as critical for the people of Puerto Rico. We have social participants who paid their fair share of social security taxes, and we have also veterans that were as dedicated as the mainland veterans with respect to the armed forces and all their efforts, who were very critical to have the freedom that as U.S. citizens we have. So take that into consideration, and everything that or any concern that the federal government might have with respect to the operational aspects, we are more than willing to present them all the alternative, all the solve or their solutions to actually get this approved plan. We feel very confident about our technological investment. We have invest significant resources, and we have professionals within Hacienda, which are world-class professionals, very competent, very brilliant, and very committed.
I just want to lastly make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Not only have you not gotten the money, not only do you not have it in the account, you don't have an approval for the plan that's needed by the government to sign off to give you the money.
That's right. We did receive $2.2 billion from the CARES Act, but are from other programs who are not bound to be used for the $1,200 program.